Hey, hey.
Hello.
So I've got a couple of potential issues. Um, so first, and one that will definitely be a problem, or is definitely happening, I should say,
Okay.
is that oh for fuck's sake, what did she do to this? Like, I use my microphone recently, and it's in a weird place. Um, the first problem is that you'll notice I'm not wearing headphones. I have either lost them or they've been stolen, which is really quite annoying.
Oh,
So I don't have headphones.
I hope it is a temporary state of misplaced.
It's been about 5 days, so I think they're gone.
I still hope. I mean that sucks. That really does suck.
As do I, but I don't go to many places, so and I've checked those places, so the chances of and the problem is the places that I do go, it's quite likely they're stolen from. So
That sucks. Sorry to hear
yeah,
that.
so it's a shame because they were like $200 headphones, and I won't be able to replace them. So that's a bit
Yeah,
shite,
no,
but
that sucks.
it is what it is. Thankfully, there's not many shows left for me, so I don't need to frantically go out and get a pair. So at least there's that, I guess. But still, it means this show I'm going to be doing without headphones. Thankfully, Skype technology has improved in the
I was
past.
gonna say
like,
I
10
haven't
years.
heard anything of us coming through, so
Yeah,
I
I'm sure it
am
won't be
not
amazing.
as worried.
The other thing, which is more irritating, is the most annoying thing is a maybe. Lexi, normally I give Lexi rides usually back from work, but because I had the show today, I asked her to get her colleague to give her a lift. Her colleague agreed.
Open Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. 나줄래다 살아온 인가 요지 여자 커피한 나누 요들하냐 봄야 인야 여자 밤이 우냐 심지한 부조어지는 여자 그런 반전 있는 여자 나는 사랑해 나도 나도 말고 다 사랑 없고 사랑해 커피 새끼로 전화워 다 사랑해 밤이 없노지 10년 뒤 바다리 선언해 그럼 선언해 까지 가볼게 오빠 강남 스타일 강남 스타일 오빠 강남 스타일 오빠 강남 스타일 오빠 강남 스타일 Sexy lady 오빠 강남 스타일 Sexy lady 연족해 보이지만 돈의 여자 이때와 싶으면 몸으로도 못 입는 여자 가엾지만 목말라 너 죽어라야 하노라 그러다 약자지 여자 나는 사랑해 나도 나도 말고 다 사랑 없고 사랑해 커피 새끼로 전화워 다 사랑해 밤이 없노지 10년 뒤 바다리 선언해 그럼 선언해 까지 가볼게 and I don't know. Baby, baby, not no more. Yo, man, you know what I'm saying. Walk my Gangnam Style. Yeah, sexy lady. Walk my Gangnam Style. Yeah, sexy lady. Gangnam Style.
And boom.
Background music. Yep, turn the background music back down to the point where it's not blasting everybody. And do the whole pre-show thing. There we go. All right. Now we're all here.
How are you doing anyway, Todd? Sorry, I did a lot of talking.
I mean, good. It's been kind of wild around here the last 2 weeks.
And just preparatory.
And it is getting wilder. 3 years ago, actually, 3 years ago, we bought a new apartment.
Yes.
And when I say new, I mean new as in nobody had lived in it before us.
Oh, very cool.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But when you do things like that, one of the things that happens is there was no proper wardrobe in it, for example, right? There was an alcove that looked like it was primed to be alcove or primed to be wardrobe space. But this stuff was a little weirdly sized, right? We also have extraordinarily tall ceilings in this place. So it was not abundantly clear how we were going to use all the verticality in this apartment. And so finally, after a couple of years and the sort of, my dividends from my job plus the bonus from 2020 from work plus some extra money from what's called in Norway vacation money, which is how you pay for the 5 weeks that you don't work.
Nice.
So all of that, we had all of that come in within the span of like 6 weeks, and so we decided to take the plunge on designing and building a wardrobe plus a Miriam the Mistress of Giggles calls it a library wall. But it's really sort of an integrated or a wall-mounted. I mean, they're really cabinets, but it's going to store books and DVDs and all of the video game stuff and players and whatnot that we have connected to our TV, plus a mount for the TV, plus a bunch of stuff, right? So this was all planned. What I didn't realize when I was told this was all planned is the amount of customization of prefabricated furniture that was going to happen. Huh. There was a lot. So there was a lot of cutting and a lot of stuff. But long story short, and a lot of upheaval because we had to move a whole crap ton of stuff. To be able to, access the areas that we needed to put this stuff up. So all of the stuff is put up. Things are getting moved back in a lot of ways. And now we are listing the excess furniture that we have on a website called fin.no.
Oh, yes, you told us this last week, yeah.
Yeah. And the idea being free if you come and get it. Mm-hmm. So we have an extra couch. We have 2 bookshelves, one of which I have my microphone mounted to. And we had a TV bench. It's the couch, the TV bench, and 2... an office chair. You may notice that there's no... If I slide to the side, there's not a second office chair sitting behind me anymore. because that's gone as of today.
Oh, nice.
So
Nice.
we put these ads out on Finn. There were 4 ads to go out on Finn. 2 of them last night, 2 of them today, or 3 of them yesterday, and 3 of them today. In any event, we had a waiting list for the gaming chair. We had a waiting list for the TV bench. Somebody's actually going to come and look at the couch, which means we're going to be able to get rid of that potentially for nothing.
Nice.
Nice.
And I don't know if we have any nibbles on the. I don't know if we have any nibbles on the bookshelves yet, but I'm sure that's going to happen sometime soon. It would be really weird to be able to get rid of the used couch, but not be able to get rid of the really good bookshelves. So who knows? But anyway, so lots of turmoil. The cat is pissed. You can tell.
With like all of the things changing.
Well, like we shifted the entire living room, right? Moved a bunch of furniture out of the bedroom into the living room. We don't really have a kitchen per se. And so there's been all this movement of stuff. Plus, Miriam's dad is helping us put all this stuff together and get it situated right and mounted to walls and things. So there's been sawing and there's been noise and there's been people in here for like the better part of 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
And so the cat has been living underneath couches and inside the bookshelf that's right here next to me because there's a blanket there. Like the smallest and tightest nook and or cranny that the cat could find was where the cat's been living for the last 2 weeks. She is not happy. And is using the tools that she has to express her displeasure with us. So there's been some cleanup jobs in the bathroom that have needed to happen because of the cat and its displeasure. So hopefully, now that things are starting to return to normal. Hi, you peed all over your mat again.
Oh.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Cats have a funny way of showing displeasure, don't they?
Yeah.
That is usually one of
peed
them.
on your mat once and we took care of it, and then you peed on your mat again and then threw sand all over it. So you're
I tried to bury it.
as you used to be. Yeah, I tried to bury it. Exactly.
Oh, no, I feel my cats during Game Fest
right.
mostly disappear.
Well, I mean,
I have
she's
to-
been gone for nearly 2 weeks, and now it's been deemed safe. So now she's back out and messing around and getting pets and stuff. Yeah, I'm annoyed at you.
See,
I just want you to know that.
I did
What are you
note
gonna do? Crawl
progress.
back under the couch?
I noted progress with my cats this last Game Fest because while there were people throughout and sleeping on couches and stuff like that, I had like a camera up in the living room area, and I did see because I use it a lot to see when I've been gone the last however times to see their food and water and stuff.
Yep.
And I saw them out adventuring a little bit, like in the wee hours between when people passed out and got up again. That they had actually wandered through the house again, so that made me feel good that my cats were a little bit less scared, I guess, than they have been in the past.
Then, now the cats all lovey-dovey again. All of a sudden, it's like, yes, all your sleeping places are back, you idiot.
Oh man, I am entertained because I've definitely run into some of the same.
That's just. Exactly, El Campo Kitty aggro in a massive, massive way. I was not prepared.
It is some of the worst. No.
So, and we even ordinarily the blinds in this room would be shut, down or whatever to kind of diffuse the light and whatnot. And in the afternoon, the sun kind of pokes its head over the corner of the next building over from us. Mm-hmm. So you end up getting direct sunlight right on the monitors, which can be a little annoying when you're trying to work and stuff.
Understandably.
So, I usually shut them the whole way, but then the cat discovered that they can open, right? And so she was sitting on the windowsill in here looking out the window. It's a totally different perspective, right? So I've been leaving that stuff up so that the cat can have a place to look
glare
out.
at everybody.
Yeah, well, and because the place in the living room's like all filled with stuff. So anyway, it's all getting fixed. That's the bottom line. The bottom line
That's good.
is it's all getting fixed. So
That's good. Yeah. No, I know quite a few pets that don't. When their home area gets disrupted like that, and so glad that it is getting better.
yeah, you're a big meanie, aren't you, kitty cat? Yeah. Well, you gonna leave now? Or are you just gonna rub up on me? Go find Miss Miriam. You like pets from her more than me.
So that's kind of funny because my cats tend to love to get my attention while I'm in the office, sitting on my chair.
Yeah.
They like to come up because they've learned they can bump my chair and get my attention, and I can just reach my hand down on the side and I can like scratch them a little bit, and they're mostly happy until they flop on the floor and I can't reach them while sitting.
Yeah, right.
But while I go, maybe it's just the constant projection or whatever it is like that, they tend to scatter a little more. They don't come up meowing quite as much as they would otherwise, which at least makes me happy in that way. They're not as disruptive, but
Right.
I've kind of thought that recently, like I wonder why they realize this time is not the time to come bug me. Because other times, man, if they're not like bumping every other minute, or I finally got one to figure out, and I want to encourage it, but it's about to figure out the boundary. Like has jumped into my lap on their own accord to like get scratches, but that's only happened once so far while I've been sitting at the computer. So,
Okay. Yeah.
but I gauge those things of
I
like
mean,
how
you
the
would
cats
like it's behavior you want to encourage, but not at the exact moment in which they did it. It's like, oh
Yeah.
god, like I want you to jump into the lap, but I don't want you to jump into the lap right now, and like how do you
Yeah.
navigate that?
Well, the other thing I have to do is because I still have to keep them out of the office when I'm not here.
Sure.
Because like I can leave the doors open and walk in and out a bunch for the most part, but if I go to bed or something, I better have it all closed up because they make it an effort to come into this office and get to the places they know they're not allowed, like climbing up onto the computer desk, and they like to find
Pets love to do that stuff, man. That's my favorite.
I like to find every little bauble I have, and I know they've done it when I go out and in the main rooms or in the house, I find them there where, wait, where's this thing that's supposed to be on my desk? It's not there. And like I think one of their favorites they have is I have this little queen alien thing that I got from like a loot box that has this little guy on the end of it that's speared. Well, I have found this guy in so many different places in the house, and the ability to reattach him each time has gotten more difficult to the point where the edges are all chewed up and such. So those little buggers, I love them.
Obviously, this is a protective thing. They want to help out.
Yeah, no, anything they can find as a toy, they will. It's one thing to just grab hair ties and stuff. That's fine, but it's like the little ornamental things. It's like, no, don't chew on this, and don't push it under a door so that you can bat at it as the toy that you're reaching for, as you seem to love to do. And I have found that cats are capable of carrying some and like things that I thought would be way beyond, what they should have the strength to do.
Oh, if they have a will, there is a way, because cats are mischievous little buggers.
Yeah,
Yes, they are. Oh man,
I think I finally diamond hands, everybody, diamond hands.
Oh,
Amazon is finally above where I bought it 3 months ago. I can finally offload it and do something else with it. So I think that's probably happening tomorrow. Holy Cupcheck! H2O Happy Dude, aka Cupcheck, in the chat. What is up, sir?
See, that reminds me, I need to get into the emails to see if we have anything coming our way.
Oh, by the way, Cupcheck, here's the discussion topic, not necessarily for here and now, because you and I are like the only people who like professional wrestling, but this is specifically for you. Ricky Steamboat is a participant in 3 of the 5 greatest wrestling matches of all time and is still underrated. There you go. Discussion topic. He's either going to agree with me, or he's gonna go, what?
He's gonna start lambasting you.
Yeah. Oh, he said, "Oh hell yeah!" So either that must be agreement. I'll take that as agreement. I'll take "Oh hell yeah" as agreement. And see, there he is in the chat. He had his best match with Chris Jericho, which I didn't even know. I didn't know that match existed. So I will have to go find that at some point, because if I could nail that down as one of 4 out of the 5, like I need a 5th, and it would be really awesome to put Ricky Steamboat in 4 of the 5 greatest matches of all time. That'd be pretty dope. So thanks, Cupcheck. I'll go find that.
Awesome. See what else?
Yeah.
So, commentary here for my area of the States. Went to Ren Fair yesterday.
Oh, that's so cool, dude. I'm so jealous.
Out into the heat and such. And holy cow, if this wasn't, I would venture to guess, the most attended Ren Fair I have been to in 20 years here.
Not surprised at all.
In 20 plus years.
Man.
Like,
Yeah.
everybody's... I mean, I've seen this in multiple instances, right? The general commentary that essentially everywhere I'm seeing in the United States that, any restrictions people were having on how they associate with each other are gone. That they just like, nope, everything is normal now. And because I'd seen it, talking to Lieutenant Fork, who works at the airport as TSA, commented that they projected, what was it, today maybe, as being the highest traveled day they've had almost ever. Where they said, like, at this time of year, they normally would see in a day, and this surprised me by itself, some 70,000 travelers go through DIA. And they were projecting, they said tickets sold for, I guess today, were like 95,000.
Oh my god.
And
that's
so
incredible.
Just in general,
yeah, it's really funny that you mentioned that, Wayne, because Norway is sort of or at least Oslo anyway, is the opposite. Everybody went on vacation last weekend.
Okay.
And so if you tried to travel on, what was it, July 2nd? Yeah. If you tried to travel on July 2nd, like, the traffic was absurd. Like, everybody's going up to the mountains, to their cabins. People are going to the airport. Like, it was insane. There is no one in town.
Oh, wow.
Like, we went to my father-in-law's cabin. He's got a cabin on the ocean right on the Norway-Sweden border. Like, nice. You look out their window and you can see Sweden.
That sounds awesome.
And as we were getting out of town, this was on, I guess, it was on a Saturday, but it was in the afternoon on a Saturday, and I'm driving surface streets, and there is no traffic.
Nice.
In the biggest city in Norway, the cultural center, the capital city of Norway, on a Saturday afternoon, and there's just no one on the surface streets. I'm driving on basically empty surface streets. We ran into a couple of buses. We went to one of the most busy roundabouts in Oslo, like one of the really terrible intersections that you can go to, and there's just nobody. Like, everybody decided, oh, we don't have to wear masks anymore. Well, F this. We're gonna.
You were getting elsewhere.
Sometime.
We're going anywhere else but here.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
No, it's been.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy, and it was because I like Ren Fair and all, but I will tell you, when it's that busy, I couldn't even get a place during the 3 jousts to see the jousts. Right, we were up the hill from. And kind of looked like I see horses, and I know what's generally happening, but I can't witness it because we didn't get here, I guess, a half hour ago to get a seat. And getting food was crazy because normally I get in there, it's like, first thing I got to do is go get a thing of, like, cider or something and a Scotch egg to start my Ren Fair day. And the lines were just packed in everywhere, where I have never experienced it like that. And I overheard, because I actually bought something. I bought some, like, relevant leather sandal type shoes that, instead of wearing my normal sandals, something that's more period appropriate,
right.
which I really appreciated. And I overhearing and talking to the shop owners, they were just like kind of amongst themselves were like, holy cow, business today
is booming, yeah.
Right, has been insane, and which I'm happy for. I'm happy that they
it is,
you know,
it is good after a year of so many small businesses, especially, have been really, really thralled by this. But it's the same here in Michigan. We went out for dinner on Friday with a couple of friends for the first time in forever, and yeah, we went to a restaurant. No masks in sight. It was busy. It was packed. But that's the thing. The infection rates are so low. They're the lowest they've been in forever here, and it's because everybody who's actually going out and stuff is either vaccinated, or when they get ill, it's not so severe because they've been dealing with it properly and taking it seriously, I guess. Which is great. I mean, I'm very glad. I'm hesitant because I know that now the D variant is the most
Delta
popular
variant's
strain
coming
now
in,
the US.
and there's challenges there with things like Pfizer vaccine apparently needing a booster to deal with it and other stuff like that. So there's still concerns, right? It's just been an interesting thing to kind of be aware and observe how it's done. Where for me, I feel this immense amount of pent up energy for people.
Yeah.
When I had Game Fest, right, one of the biggest comments back from a lot of the people at it was, I didn't realize how much I needed this.
Yeah.
Right? Like that direct in-person interaction. So it's just like continuation. That was interesting. So did that, and it's crazy. Oh, another thing. This is just like life stuff. I posted this on my Facebook because it was like, hey, adulting, right? In the process of changing out water heaters in my house because last week
an absolute pain, sir. How's it going?
Well, so I've just finished draining both the tanks I have because when I built the house, came to the decision like big house, big massive tub I have, and water heaters generally come in for home use in like 30, 40, 50 gallon sizes, and the builder gave us an option like off the top to say like and Mika, it's not that there is a need. They said there might be. So they're still trying to figure out if Pfizer needs a booster specifically for Delta variant. But they're still researching. But that came up that it might.
Yeah, they're doing research into it anyway.
Yeah. So it's be aware you might need a booster soonish. But that with the is one that was like, we can give you more than one water heater, and you'd have like 90 gallons of blazing hot water that you could fill your 100-something gallon tub with. And I was like, that option. I want enough water heat to just scalding myself, cook myself in a bath, let alone for multiple, bathrooms and stuff throughout and showers and everything. And had never had an issue with having roommates here and stuff like that. Never an issue with hot water.
Of course, yeah. Well,
challenge
if you have that
is-
much spare, yeah.
Yeah, challenge is water heaters don't last forever, let alone in this time and era. But yeah, so both of mine, like originally my 40-gallon went out like half a year ago or however many months back, where it just would stop igniting the stuff. It would no longer do the burner, their gas one, so I just shut it off. I was like, well, the 51's working. Then earlier this last week, I went and turned on hot water. It was just cold for way longer than it would take to get it up. And like, so I went down and there's water on the floor, and the 50-gallon one is like blurbling water out of orifices, top, bottom, middle.
Yeah.
And I was like,
no.
well, that's not good. So I shut off all the water to it, and it was just like, thankfully it didn't flood the floor, just wet and more than the pan could handle that catches underneath it. And I was like, awesome. So I went and picked up a new water heater yesterday, and we'll have to finish demounting, take everything maybe today if I can, all the stuff from the old 2 water heaters, and I'm going to try to just put in a new 50 and be done with it, because it should be plenty for me. But it's a lot of moving big things, and when it's just me, it becomes all kinds of awkward. So it's funny.
Why just you? Why don't you ask a couple buddies to come around and help you or whatever? I'm sure people will be willing to help out.
People, busy lives. I don't know. It doesn't come to mind usually until I'm like halfway into something.
For you not asking, sir.
Possibly.
Uh-huh.
But hey, I got it all queued really well. Like I did all the big things of like draining water. The only thing I need someone's help with initially would be like physically picking up the old water heaters and getting out from the basement. and the new one into the basement. Beyond that, it'd actually be pretty easy. It's just like attaching connections. So we'll see. But that is a project I will hopefully be doing, because I will tell you, ice cold baths and showers are not my thing. And
They suck.
You know, I realize that, especially coming after yoga class and, you know, being drenched with sweat, having to like, not enough water pressure apparently with just the one line. It all keeps trying to go back in the hot or something. And so a dribble of it, and then just ice cold baths. Just no, I don't do that. Shock to the system is, I'm too old for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yay, that's been fun. Anyhow,
I don't care because I don't bathe. I just shower every morning. I don't like baths. I every time I try a bath, I get in, I lie down, I'm like, all right, well, I'm bored. I just want to leave now.
you don't.
Sir.
Oh man, the joys of a bath. I will tell you. Kick it on, some good bubbles in there, light a candle, like put on my favorite podcast.
Not only that, there's a place here in Oslo called The Well. That is a like overarching wellness center, right? And their gimmick is it's really kind of adults only.
Okay.
But the only day of the week that bathing suits are allowed is Tuesday.
Huh.
Otherwise, like, they give you a robe, they give you towels, they give you flip-flops, right? And then it's just, they have an indoor swimming pool and an outdoor swimming pool, and they have an ice bath and a hot bath. They have several jacuzzis. They have saunas of various temperatures and humidities. They also have steam rooms of various temperatures and humidities. And so it's all about, the whole point of that place is going to the various areas, right, that are all themed. So you go into the Brazilian room, right?
Nice.
And it's like 35 degrees C and 95% humidity in there.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And then you go out of there, and right on the outside of that is this little room that you can go into that has two buttons, hot or cold. And if you push the hot button, you get a hot shower, and if you push the cold button, you get a cold shower. But that also, off of this room, are two other rooms, and one of them has a cold bath in it, right, that you can just go in, dunk yourself, and walk out. And the other one's got the warm bath in it that you can go in, dunk yourself, and come out. And it's awesome. I love it. It is the best. I'm not necessarily such a big fan of the steam rooms. But yeah, I'll take me a sauna anytime.
I love those kind of spa experiences.
They're fine for like a minute. I just don't see much more after that.
No,
My goodness.
It's a fair thing. I know a lot of people who don't like baths. I am not one of them. I have always found just being able to lay down in hot water and just soak for a minute. I enjoy.
Yeah.
I relax. It gets me ready to just kind of like do other things. And so
remember when we did the Consumer Electronics Show pod, and you showed me the $13,000 Japanese bath with app and LEDs and whatnot. So every now and then, the Mistress of Giggles gets the idea that we can remodel the bathroom. She's like, "Oh no, we can totally fit a bathtub in there," and I'm like, "Yep, if it's that, and only if it's that."
See,
I love Via Bath too, but like, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. I'm gonna get a nice Japanese soaking tub and fill it with just barely standable water and boil myself in there for like.
If it was a truly Japanese style, wouldn't it be communal?
They have both. They have examples of both.
Good call, Ken.
But anyhow, it is time for us to get things kicked over and started. So let's go ahead and switch to the show today, so we can start talking about games and such. So here we go, guys. Kick this up and let's get started.
Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to Show X Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado.
Hey, wait a second. I'm on the show too, and I don't get any billing at all? Well, I know how to solve this. Soldater, Fremad, March! You're listening to Show X with our favorite Scotsman Ken, our child of the corn Wayne, currently living in Colorado, and Todd, who now has an army of angry Norwegians at his back. Enjoy the show!
Everybody, and welcome to Show X. You're watching us.
All the robots. Oh my god. Where'd they come from? We're under attack.
Let me let me restart it and see. Like, hopefully that fixes them out.
No, it seems to have gone better. It's like it had to reconsider the change from music to.
I might have been the things, but I did hit the restart the audio engine piece of it during that, so it's a quick thing. It just has to reinitialize all the various virtual cables to say like, no, right. Play nice. But welcome everybody. You're watching us live today at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on Sunday, the 11th of July, 2021. Today, we're going to be looking back and kind of discussing what it is about the various kinds of video games that we love that makes us love those games. In essence, what makes a game good. And this is a subject we've kind of discussed in the past in some degrees about what makes like certain aspects of games good, graphics and storylines and things like that. Well, today I'm hoping we hit it a little differently in kind of, I know in my perspective, looking at some of the games that I enjoy, that I know I'm playing, that I've enjoyed in the past, and what specifically I liked about those games. And in comparison, because what I have seen is there's games of a certain genre. Like, you can find dozens and dozens of AAA games across any genre. But why is it we chose the games that we do to play those versus perhaps some of their peers? And things like that. To hopefully kind of drill down a little bit more, and somewhat specifically to what each of us like in the games that we play. So that's one of the perspectives I have, but I throw it out for what you guys each have as well for when we talk about this. Ken, what were your thoughts when we were coming into this conversation about what makes games good?
Well, for me, the reason why I suggested this theme was because I feel like this is a topic that we sort of skitter around every single show, right? It's something that is always touched on about why we might enjoy a specific game. But instead of why we enjoy a specific game and maybe talking about those individual aspects, like you mentioned before, the graphics or the audio or whatever, I want to talk about what draws us, from the new perspective of what games do we enjoy and why do we choose those? And within each genre, why do we choose specific games as well? So if you choose from all the FPSs, why do you choose COD or why do you choose whatever else, right? From all the mobile games, why do you choose those kind? That's kind of what the way I want to look at today's show. And so for, I guess the first thing I'd like to bring up is we should probably talk about, maybe we should do a round robin and each of us just say a couple things about when you see a new trailer for a new game in any genre of any kind, what you look for in a trailer, for example. And let's just assume that it's actually a gameplay trailer, okay? Let's just assume it's not one of these cinematic masterpieces that don't represent the game whatsoever. Let's assume that it's actually a in-game graphics, and in-game audio and in-game everything, right?
Okay.
And what would tempt you for a game?
I'll let you go first on that one.
Anything unique. So that would be the first and foremost. Anything unique. And honestly, I don't watch trailers very often. So when I do, I'm looking for something unique. And I can tell you, the last trailer that I watched was Ghost of Tsushima.
So something unique, like you'd see a new iteration of the number at the end of Super Paper Mario or something, right?
No.
New Final Fantasy?
Not at all like that. But we've all played the first person or the third person overhead Here's a world with a bunch of stuff to do. Grand Theft Auto clones, right? And, Ghost is a Grand Theft Auto clone, but it was unique enough and stylized enough, and in a part of the world, I guess the story that they were telling is unique, at least to me, to the point where it was just like, oh, I could play Grand Theft Auto in the Old West again, right? Red Dead 2. I could still be playing Grand Theft Auto 5 because I never really got that far into it in the first place. Or I could play Ghost. And Ghost just looked more interesting, truthfully, than either Red Dead 2 or GTA 5, right? And I spent a little time in all three, and Ghost was the only one of the three that I got anywhere near finished with, right? And in fact, I wouldn't say that I platinumed it or anything like that, but I did all of the stuff in the world. Like, I finished all the Mongol camps, I did all the fox dens, I did all the shrines, like I did all of that stuff. Wow. Just because this world was really great. Like, it was dynamic, it was just, yeah, it was a unique take on an established formula.
And I know you're a big Saints Row fan as well, so that's pretty similar to GTA as well, but it's an entirely different type of game, right?
Yeah, so Saints Row, I think what got me into Saints Row, at least for Saints Row the Third, was I had just got done playing Saints Row 2, and Saints Row the Third was really embracing its own silliness. Like, it really, instead of like, we're going to be gritty and real like GTA did with 4, right? Saints Row kind of took a step back and said, yeah, this is really, really silly. Like, this whole concept is silly. And we're gonna embrace that, and we're gonna run with it with everything we have, and you're gonna love it, and I did.
So
like,
that's
from the.
Go ahead. Go on.
No. I was gonna gush some more. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to query your overview there, because I think it's quite interesting that you say you look for uniqueness, and yet one of the things you really enjoyed about Ghost of Tsushima is the sort of reskin of an existing game type. So you don't mean like truly unique as in like a brand new genre, and that's the only type of games you'll play. You mean unique takes on existing archetypes, almost.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. Like, I'm less interested in, somebody's new. This is a new video game that's a new type of video game that's really ultimately an amalgam of already established video game types. We've just gene spliced them in a different way. Like, this time it's a point and click adventure game and a roguelike. This time it's an action RPG and a point and click adventure game. This time it's a first person shooter and a roguelike. It's these things are not necessarily unique in any way. So if you're not going to come up with a new genre, like, I guess the FPS ARPG is kind of like the last example that I can think of like something truly unique that was genre bending enough to be like, okay, I can see if I squint hard enough that this is its own thing, right? Like Borderlands. Like, we have to go back to it was different enough from Diablo, and it was different enough from Unreal Tournament to be like, okay, I can see where this could be its own thing.
I would say new genre is probably Battle Royale, and before that would be MOBAs, and also the most popular genres.
It's something we continue to see.
But isn't a Battle Royale just a deathmatch map?
Kind of, but it's specifically the sort of how you get into the map and where you choose to spawn. Almost that's part of it.
It tweaked it enough to make it different than your generic team deathmatch, and added. Well, and so that's the thing, right? Because you can bridge everything back to some core gameplay element of what it is, and because we often used to just define games as kind of the interface type, right? Whether it was an RTS was traditionally a top-down experience, right? An FPS, regardless of how you played the game, it's a first-person shooter, right? It used to be that broad, but now we're getting to nuances that kind of make these, like Todd's saying, an action RPG type of shooter as being their own distinct little niches within that are distinct enough, right, to kind of live in their own way, where now you can describe a whole bunch of battle royales and you can think of a list of them, and MOBAs and think of a list of them, kind of thing. Versus just, this is an RTS clone kind of thing, or this is an FPS of another ilk. So I do think we continue to expand and kind of define individual pieces of the genres to say that they're distinct enough to be notable. From what I see.
Dead by Daylight. Is it Dead by Daylight? I think that's the one I'm thinking of, where one person plays the big supernatural nasty and 4 or 5 other people.
Yeah, the asymmetric
survivors.
Games. Yeah, the various asymmetrics.
The hunter killer games. I guess
was the first one of that. I remember there was that.
I don't remember the first, but the one I played was Evolve. The one I played the most of was Evolve, and I really liked Evolve, and I almost think it was ahead of its time. Yeah, because it did asymmetric really well, where I've tried to play Dead by Daylight, and it's just a little like cumbersome and slow, and for me, I don't feel the appeal. We played it over Game Fest a little bit because my niece likes it. And it just didn't draw me the same way that like Evolve was just this constant action-paced, bigger thing of like a whole team having and plus a game like Evolve had an ebb and flow of, at times, if I played as the monster, I could feel epic and just wrecking these heroes that were against me. But other times I had to run with my tail between my legs because they had done a good strategy. It caught me in a certain way and hurt me enough that I was like, oh no, I'm almost done, right? And it had a good back and forth where I don't, because the way that Dead by Daylight plays, you really can't do anything to the hunter, right? You basically just have to run, and when I saw people play it well, it's like it's how they evade the hunter that makes it good, and the strategy is more like, if I can distract the hunter by just staying out of his reach long enough that the rest of my team can go complete objectives, that can be a really strong thing, but there's no way to really hurt or stop the hunter, right? He's basically invulnerable. You can just distract and things like that. So and because of that, you only end up with like 1 or 2 types of outcomes. Either the hunter kills everyone, or you all get the objective enough that somebody escapes, or you can escape through the little extra hatch that happens. That's like the 3 outcomes in the game. Where Evolve had various levels of, you could either kill the monster, or what you're overall trying to do, the monster was trying to take out your base, and so you could try to capture it enough and keep it down for it, or he could kill all of you. And there are ways to do it in times, and I don't know. It just felt that way to me. But yes, that's another whole genre of game, right? The asymmetric gameplay one, and I don't know if there's a lot of those yet, but there are a few. And Evolve, I remember now that the hot one today is Dead by Daylight.
I think there were some back in the day as well, and I think about it. I think there were some other games. In fact, I think that was actually a deathmatch game type as well, like a Juggernaut.
Juggernaut,
that?
Yeah, Juggernaut in, was that Call of Duty or Battlefield? One of those, because I actually had that conversation.
Earlier than that. I think it was like Quake Battle Arena and stuff like that.
Oh, there might have been
originally.
But no, I have heard people talk about, because that whole gameplay mode of Juggernaut's basically the same way. You get one player that has a whole lot of abilities, and then everyone else has to try to take him out.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? Is if you took Unreal Tournament and modded it so that you could pick up items with different stats associated with them, or different damage, right? So that not every rocket launcher was the same rocket launcher.
Yep.
It's basically Fortnite.
Okay.
Basically.
In a sense, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, I think Fortnite has a lot of polish to it, which is very appealing.
I'm not trying
that's
to
a
say
piece
that
we'll
the
get
game's
into.
not good per se.
Oh no,
It's not exactly my jam because I'm not, you know, my skills in that arena have long since deteriorated. but I mean, let's not. I am skeptical of calling these things revolutionary if they're just a derivative off
That's
of a thing
understandable.
that's existed for 20 years.
yes. Well, and there's discussion about when something exceeds enough that it can be noted as its own like unique thing and being significant. I do want to get back to, because I think we're talking in depth about that piece of what makes one different, better, or more your jam than another. But to answer your question, Ken, of kind of like what entices me when I see a trailer, something that I see something new coming up. I mean, I do honestly, everybody knows I do like graphics, and so something shiny by default I'll be curious of what I'm seeing. But at the same time, I also do not think graphics are king, right? I can play FTL and have a great time. And so there's a piece where that's right there. But for me, it's watching the gameplay to see, I guess what I've been sensitive to a lot recently is how repetitive does the individual action seem like it's going to be? The thing that you're doing the majority of the time. Because if you're just doing a beat 'em up type of game, is there something they're showing me that at least the new characters you're coming up against are interesting, or the boss battle type things are interesting enough, the mechanics that you're seeing displayed, that it'll grow with time? Because almost every game, God of War and stuff, is just a beat 'em up game, but they progress it in such a way that it stays entertaining and fun kind of throughout, that the pacing of it's wonderful. And they mix it up with a little bit of puzzling and stuff like that and venturing with it. So you can get a game like that is, you break it down, it's just, I'm just killing stuff constantly, right? And that's fine. FPSs are like that. But you can do it in creative ways. And so I look for something that looks interesting about the gameplay, something that's a hook that makes it more fun than just whatever. Because I see a lot that I'll look at and say that I right up front just see myself button mashing a whole lot. And therefore, I'm not interested in that one. Sometimes, admittedly, it can be a world that they're expressing can be something I have already a link to. So when they do themed ones in a certain world, like a Star Wars universe or like a comic universe, something like that, if it's something I care about specifically and something I followed, that might be a draw, right? But I guess beyond that, from a trailer perspective, it's sometimes hard because I know there's genres of games that don't entice me, and so it doesn't matter how cool the trailer looks, I'm not going to care. That tends to be the case for me for MMO type games, that the genre of MMO has elements that I just do not like as a whole. And so you can show me the shiniest thing in the world, I'll be like, meh, because I do the same thing like Todd said, of derivative of saying, to me, every MMO is a derivative of a whole lot of go fetch quests, or a whole lot of where you take someone and have to keep them alive, and then kill X many of this, pick up this, and deliver to this. And that to me is the majority of like an MMO when I break it down to like what you're doing. Now there's way more, and that's the same thing. Like I said, at FPS, yeah, all you're doing is I pull trigger, kill thing. So really, it's like that's all you do. So that's not to say that kind of repetition.
In Fortnite, you can kill people with a can. So technically,
but that's the key, right? We can derive, or we can talk to like the base core mechanic of any game, and if you do it in the right way, you can make any game sound dull. And
I don't necessarily want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be overly reductive on this stuff either, right? And I not to criticize your take on the MMO, right? But half or more of the MMO is the community around it, right? And the communities that you build for yourself, right? So yeah, I just ran a Black Morass in WoW Classic on Saturday, and it was basically the same as every other Black Morass I've ever run, regardless of my character, regardless of character class. But I was in there with people that I wanted to be in there with, right? And we were telling jokes and having fun and just kind of doing the stuff that you would do with your friends, right? If you were sitting around a table.
Yeah.
So we've made Black Morass our table.
It's the thing that you're doing around your socialization. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's why I'm not saying that I don't like, because that's where people can find a reason to play MMOs and they love it, right? I'm just saying for me personally, and this is the big thing, right? Because I can't say MMOs are bad. MMOs, I can't even come up with a number, right? Worldwide, the number of people playing MMOs is insanity. It is. I don't know if it's the biggest genre or something like that, but it is massive, right? It is no small number.
I think it's, if we do collective hours, I think it's probably the biggest, because I think people sink more hours into MMOs than anything else. But I don't think that's necessarily more users, right?
No, but that's the thing. So for me, it's like my personal taste, and this is something as I come to continue to understand myself, it gets into why I find I choose or don't playing certain games, things like that. So that's all I have for what I have for a trailer. Ken, answering your own question, what is it that draws you if you see some new gameplay trailer or an announcement of a game that you're like, oh, I'm curious, I'm taking interest?
That's a good question, and I think again I've got a different answer, which is kind of, I think in itself is interesting. We've all provided different answers, which I really like. I'd say that for me, the most excited trailer I've been, the most excited I've been for any game trailer in the past maybe 10 years has probably been games that are sequels, which is strange because I generally don't like sequels as much as new games. But the reason for it is because in a new game you can't tell if you're going to be excited with the story or not. Like you don't know if you're going to care at all. But when you're playing a sequel and you really care and invested in a franchise, you will be interested in the sequel, right? So Mass Effect's a good example. Dragon Age, World of Warcraft expansions. I remember the Fable expansions being so hyped for those because I loved Fable 1 so much. So whenever I see a new, or even actually from the same studio has the same effect to an extent. So for example, when I saw Skyrim was announced, after I was a big fan of Oblivion, that I was very, very hyped for that, right? And equally, I'm also very excited for the next game in the series, if it ever does actually come out. It's been a while since it was announced. Who knows? So yeah, for me, it's definitely the story element. Now that being said, I can also be. Let's just put this as like a secondary effect, is similar to Wayne, the graphics. I remember when we saw the latest Unreal Engine being released, I was blown away by the beautiful graphics of that Tomb Raider Magic-esque trailer. I don't know if you remember that one. The beautiful dust and light effects. That blew me away so much that I have been like, I want to play that game. I don't even know if it's a game, but I want to play it because it was just so pretty and really enticed me. So yeah, I think there is definitely an element of the prettiness of a game as well. It definitely has an effect on me. Even though my favorite game probably of all time, at least in the top 3, is Factorio, which is an ugly ass game, by the way. And so is Minecraft, one of my top 5, and it's an ugly ass game half the time, right? Dude. So I don't know why I particularly like. Say I like graphics when so many of my favorite games aren't particularly pretty, but there you go.
Dude, the games that I'm enjoying the most right now are paint the map in the Middle Ages, paint the map in ancient times, paint the map in World War II, paint the map in the Dark Ages. Like, I mean, there's not a lot of graphical firepower about a map.
No.
Right? I mean, so yeah, it's this is one of the things about the games are art argument that I really dislike, right? Because you can have a game that's really great and really compelling for which the graphics are garbage, or that the graphics don't exist at all, right? So
you absolutely can. That's why what we've said in the past: gameplay and graphics do not equate. But I always say back, but you can have great gameplay showcased with even better graphics. And better audio, and better like you can always do better because right. We've had that discussion, but yeah. So you can have amazing games that have little to no graphics and not even that great audio. Absolutely. So, but to talk, because what's funny, Todd, you're talking around, and I think we could maybe each do this in a round. Is maybe pick what is the game we're playing the most right now, as kind of start off thing to say.
Sure.
What is it we love about that game and that genre? And also, I'd love us to explore a little bit of like maybe a quick idea of what are some of the other games we're aware of in that genre. And thus, why are we picking the one we're playing versus those other ones? What is it about this one that got us that we didn't get captured by the other games that are also in the genre that people like? And I say this because, like Todd, we know you put a lot of time into Europa Universalis, and you crush that game. You love it. You play it a lot. So, if you could for us describe it really briefly, just like the genre it is within, right? Compared to, and maybe mention some of the other games that you would probably categorize in the same genre.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, so I think there's a bunch of the Paradox interactive library that qualifies as the grand strategy game where you're playing as a country or nation or ruler in a historical context, and it spans years and years and years and years and years, and the world develops over those years. So I play Europa Universalis for the most because it's a good intersection of community, mechanical consistency, weird fun stuff, and yeah, I think that's just the thing that it has over Imperator Rome or Crusader Kings 3 or Hearts of Iron 4. Like the funnest thing that I've done in Hearts of Iron 4 was play as Greece and reform the Byzantine Empire. Right, as a modern Greece, like it's not Istanbul anymore; it's Constantinople, that kind of thing. So whereas in Europa Universalis, the Byzantine Empire still exists, but is about to get crushed by the Ottomans, 500 years before they were Turkey, right? Because that all happens in World War I. Now we don't have that game yet that I'm aware of. Like, I don't think there's the grand strategy game that takes place between 1914 and 1918, right? Whereas something like Hearts of Iron 4 starts in 1936 and ends in the 1950s, right?
Okay.
So it spans the run up to World War II plus all of World War II plus some of the aftermath.
So I've got a question.
And yeah, it just.
Well, you've talked about all the Paradox games that are all these grand adventure or type games you've mentioned. Are there other companies' games that you would also lump into that general world of the kind of similar? They may not be the same because it's obviously you're playing these, but like that are similar that other people might have played that they would kind of say, oh, so Europa is kind of like Civ, another one of these games,
right? Civ, like my gateway drug to my gateway drug to the genres, the original Civilization.
Oh yeah, Civ, man, that was a great series.
So games like Civilization, Colonization, that type of build a world, large map, create an empire kind of games.
Total War, would be another one. The Total War series. So again, pick your historical context, whether it be Shogun or was it Empire?
They had a lot of European ones that are based in different areas.
Yeah, they do a bunch of stuff in Europe. They've got the 40K. They've got the 40K version. I have a couple of them.
Well, because I'm thinking even back to like it reminds me of games. Oh gosh, I wish I remember the names. That there are ones like it wasn't Castles and something or other, but they're like old top-down strategy type games that you would start building out empires. Right, you'd build out your region. You'd take over a town or citizenship, build up its resources, and then continue to conquer around as others are coming in at you. But kind of that. And because I don't know, Universalis, is it still like a turn-based type one compared to real times?
In a way, it's kind of sort of like you can pause, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing that's different between Civ and Total War and the Paradox games, right? Is that you as the player have control of how fast time progresses.
Okay.
Right? So if I really want to get into the micro of something, like I can either turn the speed that time progresses way down, or I can pause the game every day by hitting the space bar, and I can do stuff on every day. Now, for the most part, you don't do that because you don't need that kind of micro to play these games. But if you really want to do the super hardcore top end Chivos and stuff, you really do need to be sort of every day, every couple of days. Okay, now I'm doing this thing. Now I need to, and whereas I could let a week go by, where one of my missionaries has converted the religion of a province, right? And I could let a week go by before I go, oh, I have a missionary available, right? And then I assign it, but those 6 days or whatever are lost, right?
Okay,
sure.
Those are 6 days that my missionary could have been working that they're not.
So the way that time progression
and if you're trying to do something like a one faith, where you conquer the entire world and convert every province in the world to a single faith, right? Then those 6 days are super important.
Okay.
Now, I don't try to play at that level, so to me, the 6 days don't really matter. But if at some point that I wanted to do something like that, yeah, I would have to get into this really hyper micro day by day sort of, okay, what's going on this day? Okay, I can let 6 days pass. Let 6 days pass. Okay, now I have to, I have lazy missionaries, and I just got a new merchant, so I have to put that merchant in a trade node. Does that change my trade income? How does it change my trade income? Do I have to do something with the trade to maximize my income every month? There's a lot of stuff that I personally hand wave over.
Yep.
That the super hardcore players are 100% on top
and
of.
Dig into. So, you told me there's that difference in the kind of game play with the timing and the flexibility you have to kind of play how you want. When I'm looking online to see things that are compared, you mentioned them already, Total War and Civ, as genres of games or different ones that are out there. You've played, I know you've played Civ. I don't know if you put much time in Total War, but between those, what is it specific that is different about Europa Universalis versus like any of the latest Civ games that made you not put any more time into Civ? That's why you found yourself in Europa. Because I'm wondering if we can figure out like what is it about this type of game in specific of it that makes it stand out? As like for you, Todd, this is what makes this game so great.
Okay, so we'll do Total War first because that one's way easier. I have no interest whatsoever in micromanaging battles in Total War. And it's like you got to micromanage this battle, and now I'm going to assault a force.
That is kind of like Total War's thing.
Yeah,
right. It simulates battles.
I did that twice, and it's like there are not enough hours left in my life to want to do that.
Okay.
So forget about my gaming session. It just felt like it was going to take the rest of time to finish a Total War campaign.
Gotcha.
So I know that you can auto fight the battles, but that seemed like you have to play the game totally differently to the point where you would have to have an overwhelming force every time you did a battle to guarantee that you won, right? That it would change the way you play the game.
Okay.
Civ, there's been a couple of points in Civ's lifetime where the Microprose, now Firaxis, their philosophy for making a new iteration of Civilization was, we're going to take Civ, make it prettier, and add more.
Yes, I would agree completely. Because I felt that from probably Civ 4 forward. I felt that heavily.
Sometimes it reduces.
Well, and that's actually, Wayne, you brought it up. Civ 4 is sort of the pinnacle of old school Civ, where we're just going to add more and more and more and more and more. Oh, unit death stacks are stupid. We're going to totally change the paradigm of how you do combat. And so we can't do the old engine anymore because squares aren't, there aren't enough units with squares. If we make this grid, XY grid of the world, and you're not stacking units, then there's not enough space around around.
Yeah, it was you were limited by the way it was
Siege.
displayed to actually do a battle and stuff like that. It became a bit frustrating.
So, but it was also like Civ 4. I just remember being horribly, horribly complicated. There were like 11 million trade goods and strategic goods,
exotic goods, and
it was just
resources for war, and
it became cumbersome, right? It became like I don't unless this is my entire life, I don't feel like I can really explore and play Civ. It became almost a chore versus just fun.
And so the transition from Civ 4 to Civ 5, which I was very much in favor of, is like 1 unit per tile. Sieges take multiple turns, right? And you have to have a variety of units, so it's just not infantry death stack, right? It's I need archers so I can do this. I need siege stuff so I can knock the walls down faster, and then I can overwhelm the guards and take the city. Like, I liked that style of combat. But the transition to Civ 6, I just felt like they did the same kind of thing as they did transitioning into Civ 4. It's like, okay, we got to make it prettier and we got to add more. Like, more of all the things. Like everybody liked, and this is a massive overstatement, so bear with me. Everybody liked everything in Civ 5. So we're gonna do all of that to a greater degree and add some more stuff. And Civ 6 never.
Yeah, let's also mention the fact they decided to cartoonize it instead of going further down the realism route.
Yeah,
that
would be a good way to say it too. It's almost like there are too many ways to win, and you never know where you are.
That was a big one for me.
Conditions.
Oh no, that was huge for me because to me the scope of winning the game got so big that, like you said, I never quite knew. And there were times I thought I was doing great and didn't really have a great way of telling how I was doing versus others, and then just get stomped or someone else just wins, and it's just like, wait, what?
Yep.
And being lost in the game. So for me, the Civ, because I loved Civ like 1 through 3, I played a lot. And then it just started tapering off, and I tried. I got 6, I started playing it a bit, and it was just boom. Well, I played a lot of 4 as well, but that's where I started to kind of get that adjustment because, like Todd said, it just got so big. But with like 5 and 6, it changed enough that it never quite captured me. So I felt some of those same things because I used to play a lot of those kind of games, and now with the modern ones, and I haven't tried Europa, but I just never caught on. I tried Total War. Never quite, although I liked the idea of the battles piece and I played that a little bit, I just never found myself playing there. And Civ, I always kept wanting it to catch me again and never did. And so I kind of got stuck. Right. And so what do you feel is like probably the number 1 or 2 big things about what the Paradox games did differently from what Civ was going through that when you found it, you were like, yes, this is my new world building game that I can enjoy?
The fact that there's not strict victory conditions, plus you're not limited. You're only limited by your creativity and skill, right? So, one of the last Europa campaigns I did was as Japan, or as one of the daimyo in Japan. At the end, towards the end of the Sengoku Jidai.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So, first order of business when you do that, when you do one of those campaigns, is you unite Japan. Right? And then you have a decision to make. You become shogun, right? And then you have a decision to make. You stay shogun and deal with the vassals, with the other daimyo, and then you can make other nations in the world as daimyo. Or you form the country of Japan, and then you can do a colonial game, you can do all kinds of other things. So one of the things I like doing in Europa campaigns is I like sniping colonialism from the Iberians. I've talked about this a lot, right? So the way these campaigns work is they tend to follow history. So Castile, Portugal, France, England are the colonial powers. Maybe Holland, if Holland has the Uber game, right? are all the colonizers, and they all go to the New World. They discover the New World, and then in 1500, the colonialism institution spawns. And the conditions for the colonial institution spawning is it has to be 1500. The country has to have discovered the New World, and the province that colonialism spawns in has to have at least 12 development. Okay? Those are the conditions. And if you have discovered the New World and you have coastal provinces with 12 development, you can spawn colonialism. So I've done it with Morocco, right? Because Morocco's in North Africa, you can find South America in the same way that the Iberians find North America, right? So you can snipe it and form it in North Africa. But the other one that I really love doing is playing as either Ming China, Korea, or Japan, and doing it that way and exploring east to find Alaska in the Pacific Northwest, which is still discovering America.
So
right?
Well, no, no. I'm hearing.
Like it's just a fun thing. It's a fun.
Yeah, well, because what I'm hearing different from
world.
Yeah, I'm hearing different from what I would normally get from a Civ game or something like that. That it seems like the Paradox games have very specific things that will happen if you just let it play out for the most part. Right. And so what you're doing is injecting your decisions and what you're trying to accomplish into an existing thing to affect that world, which is kind of different than what Civ ever provided, other than maybe some very scripted campaign elements where it kind of starts you in this situation and then go and win the game. That this gives you a little more directive things you can do that seems like that you're really finding interesting.
So the Paradox games have a lot of what if, right? What if the king of Poland, or the interregnum in Poland after the death of the king of Poland and Hungary in 1444, what if the interregnum that was summoned to develop it, or to crown a new king, decided not to crown the king of Lithuania?
Yeah,
which is what happened in history, right?
Okay.
What happens if the Pope in 1444 decides to be a warrior pope instead of just the ecclesiastical head of Europe?
Okay, so for you, these kind of twists on what we know to be the real history, you find compelling, and it draws it as much more interesting to you and much more thing to draw into, versus the game engine that allows you to colonize an area, build this thing up, and do it again, and copy, paste, repeat, do with different conditions of the world.
I'm Cleopatra for 6,000 years, right?
So so it sounds like just that draw to history.
Yeah, if I play a game of Civ, I'm Cleopatra for 6,000 years. If I play the Egyptian. Or I'm Nicholas II if I play Russia.
You pick your one czar, whatever, and that's what you are the whole way through.
Yeah. Whereas in a game of Europa Universalis, again, depending on what country I play, like succession is a big deal, or can be a big deal.
Because it's actually playing through lineages and things like that, and all these things come together.
Yeah.
So it's got much more of a real-world, epic over time way of play, which actually sounds like it's actually more realistic to the way it translates real-world events and your things to it, almost like a simulator, versus how Civ is kind of like this overarching idea of growth in the world. So it sounds like to me you actually get a big jazz over kind of the realism of that, and now you get to take it to all the what-ifs you said.
Sure.
But you get that jazz. That makes sense.
And some of this, Wayne, truthfully, is serendipity, because I ended up moving to Europe and discovering this
different perspective
at the same time.
Yeah, different perspective.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I didn't. If you'd have asked me in 2014 if I was ever going to see Rome, the answer to that question would have probably been no.
Okay.
Right? If you had asked me if I was ever going to see the salt mines of Krakow, I would have probably said no. Right?
Okay.
Are you ever going to see Prague? Probably not. Right? Now I've got I've got goals. Like, I want to go to Vienna.
That's really cool that you got that from partly at least from a video game. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go to Vienna. I want to see, and I'll be nice. I'll use the real name. I want to see the Byzantine battlements in Istanbul. Right? Like that's all stuff that I really want to see.
I'm just glad you like Doom.
Say again?
I'm just glad your favorite game isn't Doom.
Yeah.
Well, so no, I appreciate that, Todd, because you gave us a lot to look at about what is unique about the Paradox games. Before we get to the top of the hour here in the break, I do want to get into like Ken, your side, give you what is probably what you would claim is like your number one game that you've been playing, and or that you see yourself as like identified as like I love this game. Kind of go through that same exercise of what are some of its peers or others like it, and what makes it special.
Sure. I'd say the game that I probably give the most time to right now is probably World of Warcraft, but it's not necessarily because I'm like intentionally playing it, but as much as I'm just so busy with work just now, so I tend to have it in the background. And there's a lot of things in the game that are, there's you know what WoW's like. There's so much in the game that you can do that's active, like you can do raiding. Sorry. Like you can do raiding, you can do things that are active playing and require your full attention and skill and so on. And there's quite a lot of things that are passive. Like you need to, if you're trying to farm something, well, maybe not farming because farming requires action. If you're trying to collect pets or mounts, some of which are really rare spawns, then you need to just sit in an area and like once every 10 minutes move so you don't disconnect. And that's it, right?
Yeah.
So I've been doing that a lot recently, and to be fair, that the reason for that is because I really enjoy the collecting part of World of Warcraft. I'm proud of my collection of achievements. I'm proud of my mounts. I'm proud of my pets that I have in it. Not because I like want to particularly show off to anybody else. It's just that I like to. It's just something I enjoy. I like it's something that's satisfying to the teenage me that used to play World of Warcraft a lot and used to look at all these people with these cool things, and I was like, I want to be that guy. And now I can, very slowly over my life, and that's one of my plans for my life is I want to, at least as far as I can, complete World of Warcraft, and that's one of my goals because I love that game and I want to do as much as I can, even if it's passive stuff like that. Okay. So that's one of the main games I'm playing time wise, but in terms of what I'd actually consider like some of my favorite games, I'd say in the past 5 years. Easily the game that I've thought about the most, considered the most, played the most, and talked about the most has to be Factorio.
Okay.
Factorio is such an amazing, impressive game that is so unlike most of the games that I thought I would like. I mean, I've liked some city builders and village builders a lot in the past. Like Banished, for example, is a great kind of indie game that's that's something of a city, but more of a village builder, really. And I love that game. There's quite a lot of town builders that I enjoy. Not so much SimCity. I'm not really into modern stuff, I guess, as much. But for some reason, it's something to do with the optimization aspects of city building that I really, really enjoy. And as such, Factorio and Satisfactorio, which I've tried out this year as well, has been fun, but it isn't quite as enjoyable as Factorio. And like I said before, it's to the point where it's influenced my research, and I've now got a paper out on it, and I'm actually presenting it tomorrow. Actually, now I think about it.
Oh, nice.
Which is cool. So yeah, the Factorio, and I don't know why. I don't know if it is the optimization. I don't know if it is because it's one of the things that I hate about MMOs, right? One of the things I hate about World of Warcraft and the likes is the fact that in the end, it's a mathematical model, and in the end, if you want to go and play a class, there is definitely a single route that you can take that is optimal. It's a fact, right? Because they simply set it up in a way that spells out differently and abilities out differently. And so when you want to achieve something in World of Warcraft, like taking down a boss, or more likely a set of bosses, each one will have a particular best class, best spec, best gear for that scenario. And that always annoyed me about World of Warcraft because I really wanted to enjoy the customization aspect. And I suppose that's why I enjoy Factorios, because while there is a single optimal solution, because there's so infinitely number of designs that you can make, that have different types of outputs. Like if you do only have a single objective, then yes, you could argue that there's going to be a single optimal result, like DPS in World of Warcraft. But in Factorio, there's not a single figure that you're trying to maximize. There's not just something called score, right? Unless you're a speedrunner and then you're trying to minimize time to launching a rocket or something, then there's a clear, obvious finishing route. But for me, it's the exploration of trying different solutions and trying different things out. Some games I'll start off where I focus really heavily into defense. Other times I'll really push my research really fast and find myself lacking defense, for example. Other times I'll really push certain types of production and such. And I really enjoy those aspects. The fact that I can explore it, I can try different things out, and so unlike World of Warcraft, it's a multi-objective optimization rather than a single objective. Plus, there's a random element. You don't always know what's going to happen and what you're going to find behind the fog of war. So the game is different each time. Unlike in World of Warcraft, when you walk in to fight that boss, you're fighting the same boss every time. Especially if you're playing with your guild and it's the same setup every time.
No, interesting because, well, so I guess I would ask the question then, because you talked about this optimization being something that you are enjoying about Factorio. Is it for the genre then? Because they are different types of games. I feel like personally Factorio, so I wonder if you, that seems to be more the focus. How do you get to whatever state you're trying to do through optimization? Because the whole energy of Factorio, Satisfactory, and a lot of these other games are similar to that is you need to build resource, do this, and part, it feels to me, of that game is how do you optimize it? Like part of the actual like question being asked of the game is how do you optimize it? Whereas many other games, while you could argue optimization is always ideal in any gameplay, you know, the focus of WoW as a whole isn't necessarily optimization in that way. Right? It's not like the build. Well, no, you can always optimize your gameplay. Right? Always. But the game isn't saying your job is optimization. Right? The game is presenting it in a slightly different way of more like you need to beat the boss. Now, how you choose to go about that, yes, optimization is the best way, but it's not telling you to do optimization as the core point of what you're doing. Because Factorio, right? You are literally like, how do I move goods from A to B? And then from B to C to create item D, E, and F. Right? It is built into like what you're doing, that the whole point is to leverage and move all of these different things. And thus, it's inherently good to optimize. And so there's like, I feel like it's closer to the problem. The answer in the optimization is closer to the problem than it is in lots of other games.
I just mentioned WoW because it's such an obvious example for me because it's something that I'm also playing at the moment. But you're right. I mean, if we compare it to other optimization-based games like Satisfactory, you could argue they're very similar because Factorio and Satisfactory are effectively the same idea. I mean, the premise is very slightly different, and the presentation is massively different. Satisfactory is a 3D game that you explore as a 3D engineer in first person, whereas Factorio is a top-down kind of 2D environment that you're exploring as an engineer and trying to get off the planet. Whereas in Satisfactory, you're trying to you work for a corporation effectively, and it's one of the jokes throughout is whenever you get hurt by like any of the fauna or the flora that are on the planet, you get a little message saying you will be charged for damaging the property of the corporation, which is funny. Yeah, it's kind of an amusing way of dealing with the damage aspect.
That's fun.
But yeah, but still, they feel entirely different, even though they are largely the same game. Just so because, it's probably due to the complexity, I think, more than anything.
So, Ken, is it because you mentioned something about the game being different all the time, which would point towards the roguelike or roguelite game type. So, do you play any others? Do you play Monster Train or Slay the Spire or Isaac or
I've played a bunch of those, and I've played mostly roguelikes. I've mostly played on my phone, and there's quite a lot of popular roguelikes on Android that I've played. Okay. And I've probably put a few hundred hours into. So yeah, I like roguelikes. I wouldn't say they're my favorite. I'm mainly because I'm not very good at them. And I wouldn't say Factorio is like that. The reason I say it's different is because it's just basically the map generates differently. And you can also choose how the map generates. So, for example, if you have a map that has a bunch of raw resources that are, very widely spread in patches, like big patches, but each individual square has a very small amount, it means you have to spend a lot of resources to build the machines to collect it all. And in the end, and it's going to dry up quickly. So you're going to need to find another patch soon. And again, so that exploration element becomes really important. Whereas if you start a different game and you change the startup settings so that you instead have a very small patch with an incredibly high amount of ore within it, it means you could pretty much play the whole game from that starting position and not have to explore at all. And it changes not only the type of game and how much exploration you do, but also where you spend your time and how you do your designs, and that's only one of the many configurations you can do. So it's not a roguelike in the sense that you could face different designs of mazes you need to explore, or different enemies you come across, because you're always going to come across the same enemies effectively. Really, it's your own decisions of how you set up the map, I guess. So it's not random, really.
Okay, fair enough.
That was an interesting comparison I hadn't thought of, though. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, so I just picked up another one during the Steam sale for summer called Fights in Tight Spaces, which unfortunately I did not look. It's in early access. It's another one of these deck building games, but it's very much in the map tends to be very similar playthrough to playthrough, but the way that you navigate through those areas it can be very different. And it's a fist fight with bad guys, and it's kind of cool the way they've done it. So we're supposed to not be buying early access games, but it was on sale, and
I am not against early access if it's a small company. The problem is when it's freaking EA or something. I'm like,
okay, that's fair enough. But it was a roguelike deck building game, and I have a soft spot. No matter how bad I am at these things, I just can't not pick them up. So
it's an interesting concept there, even as we're discussing kind of what it is about certain games that we like. Because Todd, you just mentioned like there's something about the game mechanics, right, that draw you, regardless of your actual experience playing. And I can understand that too. I do similar things with some sim games, flight games, racing games, things like that. There's something that draws me to games that simulate an experience I can kind of do, and it makes me want to go experience it more. It's why I get hyped for things when I see better realism in a racing game or something that's like still a game, but man, how close it is, so I can go drive a car I'll never be able to afford near limits and see what that could sort of be like, right? That is a draw for me.
For me, when I think about the two games that I've mentioned, which is World of Warcraft and Factorio, both of them very much scratch an itch for me. That's the best way to describe it. Both of them scratch some part of my brain that I can't reach otherwise. Where in World of Warcraft, the collecting, whenever I get a new thing or finally get an achievement, I'm like, oh, finally, yes, and it feels good, momentarily for like 5 minutes, and then I'm done and move on to the next one. And in Factorio, it's more of a consistent type thing where I'm like, okay, yeah, I got that design. Then I can solve the next problem. And I suppose that both of them are kind of linking into my brain type and my profession, I guess. In that I love solving problems. I'm very much a problem solver. That's why I love programming. That's why I love doing research. Right? It very much is, and I guess because this is probably a little bit too much of a psychoanalytical kind of approach, but I know that in research it's very hard to get results that are that quick and that visually obvious. Generally speaking, if I solve a problem, that means it's taken up to a year maybe, and lots of hours of effort and tweaking it and making it just work technically, right? Like putting in just the right environment to make something succeed, and then I can say, well, it works in this scenario, so it must work in others, and that's the result. Right, and that's something that is not as nearly as satisfying, and so I guess it sort of ticks that box that I want to achieve in my professional life, and I'm trying to do that through my personal life. And I imagine a lot of people who play games, especially like MMOs and RPGs, that there's a clear improvement element to it. And I suppose you could say the same with fighting games and racing games where you're beating times, or I think anything where there's an element of self-competition, not even necessarily with others, but where you're beating your past self. We really enjoy that. And I think you could argue the same for roguelikes, right? I mean, you want to improve upon your previous results. You want to unlock things you haven't seen before.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say, the way you're describing that, Ken, I would actually put that as generally the question of like, why do we play games in many cases? Because and I expand it beyond video games, stuff like that, because I've heard people taking their D&D characters and campaigns and using it as their own like psychological analysis of themselves as they role play through scenarios with their character, let alone finding games that maybe scratch that itch of something that you are good at for one, and thus finding success in those games that you get to do that thing you're good at and see the direct output from. And I can absolutely see that being a big draw to any game we play. You know, that's something about because I think all of us in some levels are problem solvers, especially on this show. I think we all like, you know, that is a nature of us. Engineering and problem solving. So I think you hit on something there, Ken, just in general of like why we play games and some of the games, why they draw us. I'm going to give us a quick break. So that,
just before we do that, can I just tell you guys a really brief story? It's a total tangent. So I played Pathfinder last night. Me and Kitten and two of our friends, we would do it every second Saturday or so. And we had the most ridiculous encounter last night that was so incredibly fun and satisfying. And it's just funny that you mentioned about playing the psychology, because we all noticed that we were all doing that last night. We talked about this last night. We were saying that as we play our characters, there seems to be some parts of ourselves that shine through that we don't really plan necessarily. It's like role playing suddenly brings it out. It's a straight, and it makes me realize there's probably parts of therapy and techniques in therapy that I've looked down on in the past. I'm like, if it's working in Pathfinder, it probably works when it's led by a professional as well. Actually, now that I think about
it, what? Yeah, no, I only just recently heard that description, and it was in a meme of someone saying like, you know, how every like DM is like watching a whole group of people work through their therapy session in a fantasy world they're helping try to create. Essentially, there's some kind of meme around that when I stopped and thought about it, I was like, oh, because I haven't played many actual role-playing games, and I struggle to get myself to do different character roles and stuff like that. But now that I'm starting to more, and I have like 2 campaigns I'm kind of a part of right now, and actually a third, but it's interesting to see that kind of come out potentially, or to be aware of it as I'm watching the interactions happen. So it's just another thing that's interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. I want to talk a little more, Ken, to you about like what it is about these games and Factorio over you keep playing that kind of itch to scratch before I try to. I think I'm picking like Battle Royale as mine to go to off this one, just because I do know I spend a lot of time there. So I'll come back with that from me. So we're going to listen to this song, OC Remix, and it's called Fillmore Freestyle from McFaffy. And then we will come back in about just under 3.5 minutes, and we will have an email from Ionis, and we will continue the show.
Gosh, tell you the rest of the show. All right.
Nah, this one's a non-wall of text from what I previewed.
Sure is from Ionis.
But it is topical from whichever show we had last. So, yes. All right. So with that, we'll take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
to Show X on btwproductions.com.
Oh, thank you for the chat for being so good to me as you sit there and say like, "Hey Wayne, unmute the mics." What? You want to hear us talk when we turn off the music and not just look at our faces? So anyhow, we are coming out of the break.
We've done almost 500 shows. We don't need to. We don't need to unmute our mics. You guys know what we sound like.
See, I need to script this part into less button pushes. This is where I was talking like my Stream Deck. I need to have another one that's just like hit the button and it does the things. Yeah, I need to automate the whole show. But we are going to read an email from Ionis. So good thing he reminded us to unmute the mics. This one being about Show X versus Kotaku's future. And it says, versus Ionis. It says, "Hey guys, I really wanted to write a smoking hot piece of commentary after the last show. I had a good opening too, asking how slow that week was to reach down so low you had to dig through dinosaur bones and Miss Sarkeesian's tweets to find Kotaku content. But you know what? I just can't. Kotaku makes me simply depressed. Let me redefine what gaming websites should be, please. Perhaps then they could reach the audience they think they write for, or start writing for the audience that they have by the simple fact that they write about video games. Let them do whatever the F they want. It doesn't make an effing difference to me. For all the general statements I agree with, after reading Miss Hernandez's post, I simply can't believe any of the PR they spin. Good for them. I guess for identifying the fact talking down to gamers about social issues doesn't do anything, because gamers don't visit gaming websites for non-gaming reasons. ... No. I just can't get myself to actually care. All I do is try to get a hot take on something like that doesn't even matter. Instead of focusing on empty PR statements, let's look at what is changing in Kotaku under Ms. Hernandez's leadership. Quote, let's rank all the Spider-Man games from worst to best. Quote, video games are a part of climate change too. Quote, Geralt's voice in The Witcher show was a happy accident. Yup! I don't think I'm going to stay. For the record, I do care. They seem to have anti-gaming sentiment to some of their articles, but what am I supposed to do? I'm already avoiding their website. There is no constructive criticism that won't be taken as another angry white gamer rant by someone, or mansplaining, or gatekeeping, or myriad of newspeak words that are intended to shame me for who I am. Fight the good fight for supporting positive gaming journalists and creators like my good friends from Show X. Aw, thank you. From Versus the World Productions. I tried, Doc. I really did. That from Moozle, level 61 Feral Druid on Netherguard Keep EU.
/loot.
Good for you, and I understand, Ionis, you tried. But yeah, I can echo some of those sentiments. In a way, kind of who cares, because if there's not an audience for me there, why bother? So...
Okay, so as crazy as this is going to sound, and I'm going to get shouty again, so I'm sorry. But it matters, right? It matters. It matters that every mainstream gaming website out there is the same. Posts the same drivel, has the same inflamed case of Trump derangement syndrome. Like, right? And here's this golden opportunity with the weasel Stephen Totilo leaving. Right? So here's this golden opportunity. Like, if you're the corporate heads behind G&O Media, right? You could create a honest to God gaming website and ghettoize the rest of the genre. Right? So imagine Just imagine that you hired an EIC that gave a damn about video games. And suddenly you started producing video game content, right? Rather than culture content, culture war content, right? You would suddenly, like, it would take time. Like, this stuff wouldn't be instantaneous because Kotaku's got a reputation, right? Just like Polygon, just like RPS, just like Destructoid, just like IGN, just like Ars Technica, just like, I could go on and on, right? Hell, even Forbes, even Eric Kane, right? Like, there was a period of time 6-7 years ago where, you know, a bunch of people went to Eric Kane because Eric Kane seemed to be somebody who got it from the gamer's perspective and laid out all the shady crap that was happening. And he's just like, yeah, you know, I kind of followed up the leads, but this isn't interesting. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah, it is. It's really interesting. Right? And so my point, I guess, of all of this before I spin down this ridiculous rabbit hole that's going to take us all the way back to 2014, a change in leadership is an opportunity to change direction. And the direction of Kotaku wasn't particularly great under Stephen Totilo. And now it's not going to get better. And I think I can make a credible case that it's going to get worse with Patricia Hernandez as the new EIC. And Todd, why does it matter? You don't go to Kotaku anyway, unless you're looking for something to mock. And yes, that's true, but maybe I would care more about media created surrounding the gaming industry if any of it was any good. Right? Outside of a couple of YouTube channels that I specifically follow, because they've been crapped on by other websites, right? It shouldn't have been Milo Yiannopoulos that broke the story that a bunch of gaming journalists were colluding on an email list about how to cover stories. It should have been Kotaku that broke the story that a bunch of games journalists were colluding about how to cover stories together, except Kotaku was participating in the email list, right?
So, yeah. No,
that's the point.
The challenge is, I guess I would say, there needs to be enough diversity in the journalism of any content. Both stories can be covered versus just narrative sent. And there's a challenge when it seems like a majority of the ones that get noted are part of the same narrative, and thus potentially the problem. So I can see where it does matter, but I also can see, like, because I have the initial impression of, like, but I don't go to Kotaku, so I don't care. And there's a chance that whatever it turns into is something that is so far away from gaming that the majority of gamers won't care either. That's actually more my hope, because I agree it's not going to go the direction I want to, from what I see, or that I will care about. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen.
But this falls back to the corporate overlords, right? I'm sorry, I really do want to stop talking about this. But this comes back to the corporate overlords at G&O Media, right? They're looking at the numbers and they realize that clickbait garbage that ends up on both the Gamergazi subreddit and the Kotaku in Action subreddit as like this angel devil sort of thing is the way to maximize clicks. And so while in Todd's utopian version of the universe, an actual gaming website run by actual gamers talking about things that actually matters to gamers, right? Capital G, that Patricia Hernandez herself said, yeah, we don't serve those people very well. Well, you could try starting anytime. You're the new EIC. Like, we're going to put all this garbage content to bed and we're going to start talking about which is better, additive multipliers or multiplicative multipliers. Because I'd bet all the money in my pockets against all the money in your pockets that Patricia Hernandez doesn't know which one's better. And the answer is multiplicative multipliers, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
So we come back. Thank you, Ionis.
Because the multiplicative 10% bonus on a 10% bonus ends up being 121% bonus, whereas additive 10% and 10% is only 120.
It goes up quickly. Yes.
Yes.
But no, to continue back. So thank you, Ionis. We do like the callbacks because that's the whole point. We want to hear your opinions as well.
Absolutely.
So, Ken, we were talking before the break about Factorio and Satisfactory, and I know there's a bunch of other ones that are kind of similar. I'd almost put even some of the ones, I don't know if Space Engineers falls into that category or not, or those kind of ones, but it gets into kind of an optimization where I even saw some articles that linked closely, like Minecraft and the kind of experience you get into that, to some of these kind of games. And it's kind of curious because that's like optimization of survival. And like 7 Days to Die and some of those kind of games where there is a level of like the optimization that's in those where I still say like Factorio is very specific, as is Satisfactory. So for you, when you've seen the other kind of games in the genre, what is it about Factorio specifically that seems to have grabbed your interest compared to any of the others you've seen? Like what about it shines where the others may still be fun, but just for you, that wasn't the thing?
I think is the extreme level of polish that's in Factorio. So it's a very simple concept. Factorio is basically just a set of machines that pass materials back and forth to eventually produce a spaceship at the end. And to do that, you also need to learn to unlock things with research. And to do that, you need to spend materials to do the research, pretty much. And there's a lot of challenges along the way, including enemies trying to destroy your base, these alien creatures that come and bite at your machinery and your walls and your turrets. There's electricity requirements, energy requirements, which change over time. It increase over time usually. There's also resource management. You might end up solving one problem to extreme optimality, where you're like, great, I've got the perfect, way to produce as many iron cogs as I want, and I make loads of them. I make millions per second. But then you don't have enough iron to do the other things that you need, like make ammo, and so your base gets destroyed by aliens again. So it's the extreme polish and the ratios, I guess, behind the mathematical numbers behind everything. And I just find the concept very fascinating. The fact that this is a kind of game that, as a human, I can play really easily. Like, admittedly, the first time I played it, and same with everybody else who plays a new game with such complexity, it takes a good few hours for you to really start to understand it at all. And Factorio is kind of like skiing, where it's not only hard to get started, it's also hard to master. And there's this middle zone where you'll be an okay skier for a very long time, right? Like the vast majority of people who ski are in that place. It's like the first 2% of your time skiing is going to be really bad. Like if you say you spend like maybe 10 days falling on your butt over and over again, and then after that, if you continue skiing a lot, you'll then spend the next like 100 to 1,000 days being fine, and then after that you'll start to become really good. And that's kind of what it's like with Factorio, and probably similar time frames, to be honest, because there's so much understanding. But what's interesting is in my research, I found that there's, even when you apply some of the most advanced AI to these problems, AI are only really good at solving one specific issue. So if you tell it like, oh, make this perfect design for producing electricity, it'll really, 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 really struggle to do anything else. So it'll make the perfect design for electricity, probably, if you code it all right and if you give it the right parameters and the right data and so on. It'll make a really, really nice design, but it will not consider anything else. It has no way of understanding how that fits into the bigger puzzle. But us as humans, when we learn and we spend a few days working on this, we can on the fly produce new solutions, deal with new problems, and be very dynamic with the problems that come along. So when you play a new map and you find that, usually you have a big coal supply, so you can, initially power your base with coal, but instead you've got none. So you need to either rush solar or you need to rush nuclear power. And both of those are really tough to do. So you're trying to like minimize the size of your base so you have very low energy requirements while also trying to rush to a high research. So you're maybe going to be minimizing your military and so on. Those kind of decisions that we can just logically consider, that would take an AI completely by surprise. It would have no idea what to do. Like if it only played games where there's lots of coal at the start, it'd be screwed. It would have no idea what to do from now on. Okay. It's not adaptive unless it tries it thousands of times. We're impressive because we can look at it and say, I can use my imagination and estimate what will happen long before it does. And that is so novel. And that's what really sets humans apart from AI and the majority of problems that are out there.
Actually, that by itself, you just taught me something that I'm like, wait, what? The ability for humanity to have intuitiveness or some kind of like, a leap of faith in thought beyond what the direct, what I've learned in the past to innovate is something that AI is limited by.
Absolutely. I mean, my specialty is a form of AI called metaheuristics, which are actually trying to solve this problem. The whole idea of a metaheuristic is you make an AI, which is a general problem solver, and in theory, if you present the problems in a general way, it should be able to solve it because it doesn't. So, think of a detective. When a detective is trying to discover, say, a detective's in a room and there's a bunch of clues that the detective needs to find. The detective doesn't necessarily think, I'm going to look specifically for a blood-stained handkerchief that's in the third drawer, right? It wouldn't know to do that. A detective wouldn't know to do that. He would instead just say, okay, well, in the past, when I'm in a room and I want to look at stuff, I've maybe looked like around the place generally at first, and then I hone in towards the cupboards, and then I hone into a specific drawer, and then from there I look within the drawer and find something of interest, right? That sort of general search is pretty much why I specialize in. So you can use that same idea regardless of which room you're in. So whether you're in a bedroom, or whether you're in a kitchen or a basement, or even if you're outside, in theory you can use that same AI. But the problem still exists that detective is not going to be good at building a spaceship, or is not going to be good at solving a completely different problem, right? My AI, I specialize in it. We're trying to solve this sort of generalization problem, but we only made it generalized within the problem space still. They still can't generally work on every single problem out there. That's kind of a general understanding of it. I mean, it's not entirely true. It's a little fuzzy around the edges, but that's generally true, I said. Okay. So that's partly what I find so fascinating with Factorio is that I'm looking at it from this logical standpoint, and I guess I'm sort of analyzing myself as I do this thing. How can I do this? How can I solve these problems? Another really interesting example with AI is art. For an AI to build, so before we go any further, a lot of people scoff when I say this. They go, AI can't do art, and they've already made the decision. They've already made it up, and I'm like, how do you know that, right? Like, if you looked up, you read about this, like, AI can make art, especially neural networks, especially deep learning type stuff, can absolutely make art. And it's indistinguishable to humans. That's how good it is at making art, okay? So please, before anybody tries to tell me, like, I've had arguments with a lot of people who are, especially artists, who say, well, the thing about art is the meaning behind it.
Well, you're threatening their entire livelihood.
And
what makes them unique? They're going to defend.
It matters. But I say the meaning is in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, if an artist creates a painting and then dies and never tells anybody what it means, does that mean that painting is now useless? Even if it's a beautiful masterpiece? No, of course not. Because the people who look upon the art will add their own meaning to it, right? And I think most people would generally agree with that statement. So why can't we replace that artist with an AI? And now this is where things get really interesting, because an AI is similar to a human in this respect. If you ask a human who has never seen any art before, like imagine somebody who's grew up in a single room, right? Never left that room. Like they can speak English or speak a language, whatever, and knows some general social skills, meets people and stuff, but has never been exposed to art for whatever reason, right? And all the walls are blank. And so has never even seen color properly or whatever. And gets asked, can you draw an impressionist painting or whatever? They'd go like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. No, of course I can't do that. And if you explain even the basics of what art is, they'd still fail to do it, right? If you then take them to an impressionist gallery, they'd probably only be able to do impressionism, right? because they wouldn't know how to breach out into other genres of art. They wouldn't understand. Or maybe a better example would be realism, because that's something that's more obvious for anybody, because it's just drawing what you see, right? So let's say it's realism. And generally speaking, people wouldn't be able to bridge that gap. And that's why when people actually come with a new genre, it's amazing. They're like, holy crap, this person started a new field. Like, same with music. Elvis Presley, right? You look at him, and even I don't like his music, right? Still made an entire, or at least contributed so much to a new genre of music, right?
He popularized an existing black music and took it into the white space. But yes,
that is a very good point. I'm sorry.
I don't put him as innovative so much as making it palpable. But yes.
Thank you for educating me.
But the idea of yes, that someone could create an entire new feel or look or way of applying something, especially in artistic space.
Yes. And the same thing applies to music, applies to art, applies to engineering, and anything else. When somebody comes up with something that's truly creative, that's actually a really rare thing. However, that doesn't mean that other people can't produce skilled pieces of art. So when somebody comes up with a new piece of music, generally speaking, is probably going to fit into the genres that already exist. When somebody comes up with a new solution to a problem, it's generally going to look like the previous solutions in some respects. It's a reconfiguration. And this kind of fits into what we're saying about new games as well. Generally speaking, new game types are very rare, right? Not only is it a finite number, so it's hard to come up with new game types, but the majority of them are already there, right? At least the basis for them. So until we get new technology, like maybe smell or something, like or maybe tactile responses that truly work, or truly augmented reality that works well and is easy to utilize, or better VR and so on. We need these kind of innovations to really unlock new genres, I think, because we are limited by the tech. But my point is that my draw to Factorio is that I love looking at the perspective from the human lens, and the fact that I can go in there and solve problems way quicker in terms of amount of processing required than a computer. Why is that? When a computer can calculate billions of sums per second when I can't, and yet I can find better solutions to problems than it can. Why?
Interesting. So does that thought process involve itself with, like, while you play various games, that you would kind of stop, and does it add to the effect, or is it just specific to like this one with Factorio?
It absolutely does add to the effect. I mean, if you think about again, if you're a trained musician and you go to the opera, you're going to get an entirely different perspective from somebody who has never been to the opera, has never been trained in any musical instruments, right? It's not that they're same with going to see a film. If you're a cinematographer, or if you're even a cameraman or something, and you work on films, when you watch a film, you see it differently than everybody else. I bet Hando can attest to this as an AV guy, right? When you listen to the audio levels of a band playing, if you're the one who does a lot of the audio tech stuff in the background, you hear an entirely different thing than everybody else.
Okay.
And I think that in some respects, I get that from very specific niche games like Factorio. Not every game. I mean, I apply a little bit to things like World of Warcraft, but usually only in passing when I actually try to actively think about it. But Factorio being so very similar to the work I do, being that it is truly optimization, it links heavily.
Okay. Interesting. No, I appreciate that. And it's fun to hear, again, the kind of games that draw us each. So I'm going to take my crack at it at some of the time that we have here, because the one, like I said, I'll bring up is Call of Duty Warzone. And admittedly, it's a battle royale, and you could arguably say that battle royales can be a flavor of the month kind of thing. There are several out there. I started in the genre with PUBG. Players Underground, whatever. I forget what PUBG actually stood for as a full name.
Player Unknown's Battleground.
Yeah, right. And so started there. I've played Apex Legends. I've played the Call of Duty Warzone. I'm trying to think. I know I played a couple others briefly, but those are probably the three that I put the most time in. And so to talk up front about like what it is about the game type and genre I love, I've always loved FPSs. I love click, shoot, kill the thing in front of me type games. Something about FPS and that kind of thing, all the way back to, for me, it was Duke Nukem 3D, Doom to a degree, but then adding the multiplayer aspect into it was Duke Nukem, Unreal Tournament, things like that, that also kind of changed from just the regular first-person shooter, campaigns. There's something about the multiplayer aspect as well that I quite enjoy. and this is a truth of several of the types of games I do like, is some of this like competitiveness that isn't just against an AI, where you can figure out kind of the rules of the game and therefore the rules of the AI and how it'll perform. But now you throw into the mix a random element of people and have actual people being part of the process makes it a big deal for me for why I like multiplayer games. So, while being a team-based multiplayer FPS all wrapped into one, where it's not just a traditional FPS of one team versus another, where you just kind of keep butting heads against each other, either for kills or for like capture the flag type of objective, or classic ones like domination or something where you hold areas for a period of time. This was one where the Battle Royale switches up, right, where it's last man standing. And it changes the genre some from traditional deathmatch matches enough that I find that compelling, that I get to participate with a limited group of people as a team. You can play single, in most of the games, solos, duos, trios, depending on what the game provides, up to many places quads, against some selection of other teams. And that was always really a compelling thing. I like that they basically, one of the elements of the game, there's a bit of RNG, in that you get to spawn, drop in, whatever the case may be, in different locations. And that alone provides a certain variety in the game, even if you're playing on essentially the same maps over and over again, or a limited selection of maps, that you get to experience it somewhat differently by choosing where you start. And that the progression from that point to others is usually somewhat linear, or some way that you have to progress through, potentially other bad people, other teams, to try to make it towards wherever, somewhat randomly, the destination is going to be. Because the other element of a Battle Royale that they all have is some way of squeezing the population together for combat. They all have some form of a diminishing boundary that forces battle to concentrate, so that it's not just one big massive map that stays massive the entire game. As then people die, and it's really based on time, but essentially it starts to concentrate where you can play, such that there's always a chance you're going to run into other people. But it's not a guarantee, because it's not based on how close you are to other teams or things like that. I have got entire matches in Battle Royales where I see no other team, and it comes down to the last couple minutes of fight where it's all decided. And I've been in those last fights. Other ones where you drop in and it's hot from the moment you hit the ground, where you're having to play aggressively from the second the game starts to eventually maybe being able to catch a breath as you survived, if you do. Other games where you drop in, you die before you even made it 5 minutes into the game, right?
It's interesting, right? Because I think we naturally assume that there's going to be a sort of uniform random of placement of players throughout the map, but the more you play, you realize that there's actually clusters around specific things that are either of interest, or there's a mission there or something for the day, and so on. Yeah.
Well, and so that's how the genres continue to morph over time, because PUBG was, for me, like the get-go, where there's weapons, you find them on the ground, you pick them up, you decide compared to what you already have, whether you want to keep it or adjust it to a different weapon based on either your game style or the quality of weapon that you find. You have things like armor and backpacks, what you can carry, health packs, things like that, throughout the game you can find things that improve your survivability and your lethalness, your lethality. But all of that aside, what's both great and frustrating at times is, it doesn't matter how geared up you might be, a noob that comes in with nothing but a pistol can kill you if they're good enough. And so there's still a skill-based element on top of like all the numbers that you can have involved, right? Skill can trump the number of like, I have the best armor, I have the most lethal gun for this situation, but this guy dropped in, got behind me, I didn't see him, and he came up and meleeed me quick enough that I died before I could react and try to shoot him. And such. And so there's even there a random element that is that human piece, that multiplayer human piece that I like, that spices every match of the game up differently. So specifically, so that's kind of the genre, right? I like it's an FPS, but there's gear, so it's not always the exact same, and it's not always me just picking the one gun that I'm the best with. I may not have it available, so there's a bit of like, I have to work through the situation at hand. I have to strategize, and with teams, I can do things that are legit make sense, like let's, someone flank this position while we come in and distract at the front, and things like that add so many elements to the gameplay that I really appreciate, beyond just like a Twitch FPS. And as well as like survivability. So many Twitch FPS is one shot, you die, or one good rocket burst and you'll knock a person out. This one can be you get clipped. There's enough things where someone might not be the best shot, so they miss you a little bit and you can react. All of these things apply, which are a lot of fun. So in my progression through them, and why I'm stuck to Warzone now, is PUBG introduced me to the genre, but by playing it today's standards, it is slow and plodding. Like, you don't move very fast, you can't get through the terrain very quickly. In a way, maybe it's more accurate to some level of realism, but there's a balance between real and fun in almost any game type, right? And I feel like PUBG for me has gotten to not fun. It's like too real in some ways, and because I've now been introduced to newer mechanisms, it has lost some of the appeal.
It's a sad fact of ingenuity and innovation is that it's also iterative, right? So when we see this, it's a common trope that Apple did this, right? Like whenever Apple produces a new feature, it's because it's been polished, and it's not a new feature. Obviously, it's been out on Android or something before. Everybody knows this, and everybody accepts this. But the difference is it's been really polished to a point where it's presentable and it's going to be in its finest form. So while you might have an assistant that you can talk to on your, I don't know, old Sony Ericsson, it's going to be like janky and not work half the time. But then the Siri version on Apple will be 10 times better. And so everybody would want Apple for that reason. Oh, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these genre-defining moments in games like Dota, right? There's another one. Dota is still big on Steam, and it still had its original speed, acceleration was pretty good. But League of Legends came in and just tore a new one, and it still does to this day.
That's another one that I had on my list. Like MOBAs was another one I could have gone down the path of, but we don't have time, right? Because that exact conversation, let alone Heroes of New Earth, Heroes of Storm, all the other stuff that had come out that were around MOBAs. You're right. Innovation's a big part, and one of the problems is because as every new genre game within that genre comes out, they change things. They have to be unique. They have to try things. So I got to progress with them, and I went to like Apex Legends, which is the one built on the same engine as Titanfall. And it added things that PUBG didn't have with mobility. Man, it made you able to slide down hills and parkour around the world a bit and things like that, and gives you verticality that PUBG never had, where you had actually ways to get into the air and structures. It changed the game significantly. They also did some refining on essentially how you interfaced with your weapons and things like that. And the biggest thing that they implemented that PUBG, I don't know if they've tried to retrofit or not, was in-game communication, the ability to ping things from an FPS perspective in-game to say, that has some interest. Like, here's an item someone else on my team may want. Here's the place we're going to go next, such that you didn't have to have in-voice comms to be able to coordinate very well. So they polished it in a way that made it very compelling and gave you a little more variety in the characters, because they also added things with special abilities to individual classes that tweaked it just slightly. Well, all of that culminates for me into what Warzone did, where Warzone is additive in a lot of the things they did and not really transformative, but where like Apex Legends actually did probably more of the most transformative parts of the game. Things like being able to bring a teammate back to life if they've died, and doing it in a smart way so that it's compelling to me, because now you're not, oh, I died, so I guess I'll wait till the next round, which could be 20 minutes.
That's the League of Legends change.
Right, it's
right, because and I'm gonna say you guys, and I'm sorry about that, but what did you guys always complain about Dota that the death penalty was so terrible that you would get so far behind that you could never catch up.
Yes. Oh, right? I absolutely. It was, to me, an elitist type game. You either are one of the best, or you suffer the whole game. And thus it becomes quickly so insurmountable, it becomes unfun, right? It's the point where, like, I do not see a path to success from where I'm at. And so for me, well, at that point, right, why wouldn't I just quit?
Played at Game Fest was that way.
Not always, because you could always play it like a deathmatch game. And I took out the top guy this one. I may not win the round, but now he became my target, and I could take him out 3-4 times, and I feel damn good about that. He's my nemesis, right? And even though I didn't win the round, I took so-and-so out this many times. There are ways to progress, right? That you can come back from some. In an RTS like if we were playing, Force, any of them, Supreme Commander to, StarCraft, you name it, Warcraft, any of those. If you were able to get away from the combat long enough and start building up another force, and other people were fighting, it is possible you could come back and take them out, right? There were ways to still continue, or if you had teams to work with your team and still be productive, where even though you were almost dying, you build up enough to now shore up things and do better. But I will say that I think one of the advantages I think has been smart about team-based games going forward, and other games have been picking this up, is making ways so that one failure in the game does not turn it into the end of the game for you. Because in older games like a PUBG, especially when you're playing with pickup games with other people randomly, you died and you were out and you fully died, you just quit. And then you loaded another round and your team is no longer your team. Or if you're trying to play with friends, it became, I guess I get to wait now until all of you are dead before I play again. And where Apex Legends started it, and I think Modern Warfare did a great job refining it, is that in Warzone, you just have to collect enough cash randomly from what you find in the world, or from killing other people and picking up the cash they had on hand, and then getting to a buy station. And as long as you have $4,000, you can pay for one of your teammates to come back in for every $4,000 you have. As well as they made elements in the game to give you other spice that there's risk and reward. You could pick up in a big enough match a most wanted bounty, which allows you to become a target everyone sees on the map and has value to kill you because there's a reward associated. But if you survive for 2.5 minutes, all of your dead teammates instantly respawn.
Oh, wow.
And you get a cash bonus. So it's a heavy risk to reward thing to do. And in doing so, there have been times where my team's done it, and we've gone where we got smashed early, and yet we're able to come back and win the game because one of our guys did the high risk, high reward. We stuck around and watched him, and because we can see their view when we're dead, we're calling over comms like, dude, I saw someone to your left, or I'm listening quietly, and I'm like, I hear the footsteps to your right, and they're about to come around the corner, and helping the person strategize.
I've experienced that in Fortnite as well, because they have the same mechanic in Fortnite if you're playing in groups.
And I feel a little bad because I didn't bring up Fortnite is also a battle royale that I've touched, but for me is not one that was compelling because I can't get a handle on the build element for me.
It's very difficult.
I've watched people do it successfully, and that's one that kind of like Todd said about our ability to perform at certain clicks per minute in certain activities have diminished over time. Because
I had to practice that one to get okay at it.
Yeah,
and I'm still.
Fortnite's a kid's game to me. It really is. I just can't. I can't keep up with it. But it has those battle royale elements as well. And so for me, like why I like Warzone so much is one, they've continued to innovate and change the game, even though people complain they have one map or two now, really. But they keep tweaking things as they go to keep it relevant, and they do events and they do all the kind of things. They've like take little pieces of what you see in so many other games. Not that Warzone's the only one that does it. Apex Legends does. I think PUBG does as well.
Fortnite does it to an extreme.
Right, they do it where they do they host concerts in Fortnite, right? Because the real game that's never actually been released, whereas the free side game of Fortnite, which is the Battle Royale.
The real game has been out for a long time.
Oh, has it? Because I say the real game, like nobody plays, right?
The one thing they really did to piss me off was that they promised it as a free game to all those who got Fortnite in the beta, but then they realized they could make money, and then they went back on it and said it now costs money.
That's never fun. Yeah, so
nobody bought it really.
So one of the things I noticed about myself, and that why Warzone works, and there's a lot of other ones do, like I said, that multiplayer randomness I like. And yet there's limits to it, because there's a lot of games I like for the single player. And because I had a whole list of stuff that I could have talked about, like what I like about RTSs traditionally are single player experiences where I can take my time and build a world I want to build and react against the AI. That's an instance where I like to fight the AI more than I like fighting other people. And maybe that's a limit to my skill and click speed, because other people can optimize their build and RTS is so much that I can't compensate. I get destroyed. So maybe that's why for me AI and RTS is my favorite attack. And so it bounced around, but yeah, for me, because I like classic deathmatch, I get tired of just team deathmatch to a degree. because then I can't shine as much as I'd like. But something about this. Well, right? There's a point with team deathmatch where it's either, depending on your team. Whereas solo deathmatch, I used to be one of the better pures, and so I'd be in the top however many. Sure. I liked that. It's a dopamine thing of me like, look what I did. Yeah. Right? I enjoyed it. But at the same time, Warzone, I realized there's people on my team I usually play with that are way better than me. And I'm at best a fill, but I still enjoy it when I can do the thing I need to do to get the team to succeed.
When you can't identify the worst person on your team, it's you.
Right? Oh, I have fully shown multiple times where like, I have been here to help you guys know where the enemy is when they shoot me. That is my role today. Like, I am the rabbit. I am the decoy.
Bullet magnet.
Yes. I have had games where I got pulled back, respawned 4 times, but we won because after every time I got lit up, my team took out everyone else because they didn't know where they were. Or in a clutch moment, I had enough resources that I bought in our team again or did like the risk thing and got them all in. They had all the kills, but I was the one who kept us alive. Right? So I've had so many moments of support moments that it felt great. Well, and they come back sometimes where it's like, I did that. Heck yeah. Right? And I like that you can be a hero in the Battle Royale games, in the ones where you can come back. You can have a moment that makes you a hero. Right? Whereas I less get that with some of the other game styles I've played. Although I also, for me, it's weird because I do like a variety of games. And so I'm just trying to focus on this one. Because I could go off on sim games, RTS games I like, other types of games. I think we all could. We all have games beyond the ones we focused on that we could talk about.
Well, we just talk about the ones we're really currently playing, and that's it.
Yeah,
we have a lifetime.
Let alone everything we've ever loved. But I like that we took some time today to kind of look at some of the specifics about what we liked in each one. Because hopefully for you guys as an audience, it maybe it reaffirms some of the things you like. I don't think you heard from any of us a reason that you shouldn't like the thing you like, right? No, that's not our point here. But this is why maybe we were drawn to this one versus another that maybe you hadn't taken the time to look at. And not to say that what we liked is better than what you like.
Oh, God,
there might be reasons that you like yours more.
This is a very personal, our opinion type thing.
Right. And that's the thing, right? I've never been one of those people to say what you like is bad.
Yeah.
Right. I will very much say this particular game type is not for me.
Yes.
Right. And that's okay. By the way, point and click adventure games are not my jam. Right. Like,
gotcha.
I don't as long as you out there are not forcing me to play one, I am perfectly content with them existing and me never playing another one. Because there's something about the formula that I sit back and I go, it's not for me. Right? And that is 100% okay. Right? So just remember that, like Wayne and Ken have been saying, like, this is a personal preference issue. If you like battle royals, that's awesome. Do battle royals. If you like the wargaming, like warships or war tanks, great. I played warships for a long time. I'm not playing it anymore because of decisions that have been made by dev over the years that I disagree with. They have a major power creep problem too. In order to get people to buy new ships, the new ship lines that they come out with are always the most powerful.
Yeah,
and then they do balance tweaks so that it's like it's like kind of this bait and switch thing. It's kind of the Riot model.
Oh, there are a lot. Yeah, Riot does that. There's a lot of ones where they rely on new content. That happens.
And I'm not saying those two are the only two. Like there are a bunch of
Warhammer 40K. But
yeah. Right. So it's just if that's your thing, play it. If roguelikes are your thing, play them. Some people really like Spelunky. I tried to play it and it's just not something about the controls that I don't. It's the controls in Spelunky 2 are a little squishy and I don't like them compared to
a strange
Isaac.
feeling when you get recommended a game or it's like a AAA title and you hear, I guess, great reviews and you're like, oh, this is going to be exciting. And, like, for me, that was Spider-Man. Like, I got Spider-Man on the PlayStation. I paid retail price for it. It was like £50, which is like $80 in the UK. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I've heard so many good things. One of the best rated games on PlayStation. And I played it for like 2 to 3 hours trying to like it. Oh, and I was just like, I hate this game. I just do not feel it at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sir, I know it's very inappropriate timing, but you're roboting a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
You fish this out, Ken.
Sure thing. You have been watching, listening, and enjoying our 499th episode of Show X here on Twitch. Thank you so much for joining us for this very almost momentous show. Every show is momentous, of course. We will be back next week for episode 500. Be sure to join in. It's going to be a very special show. And thank you very much to Mr. Wayne for hosting. All the way through the technical difficulties, we almost appreciate you battling off those artificial intelligence demons that are obviously plaguing the interwebs. Not my fault. And thank you for joining us, Todd, as well. Your insight and I love the fact that we are so diverse in our different game tastes as well. Isn't that quite interesting? The three of us, even though we're kind of homogenous in the fact that we're, standard engineers, all dudes, and we all like video games. We also have these really diverse tastes of video games. We are not at all in the same boat in terms of the games we play together.
No,
which
that's
is really
true.
Interesting.
That's true.
So thank you for bringing in those insights, guys. I really appreciate that. And thank you to all the listeners as well for joining us again. We really appreciate you guys being here.
All right. With that, we are going to let you all go and enjoy your weeks. Also, just as a throw out, because Lance definitely clued us in that Games Done Quickly is going on right now, and they're raising money. So shout out to them. I always appreciate the kind of work they do, and probably should do this ourselves. But let you guys out here. Yes, Todd, you're up. I'm ready for it. So let's do it with everybody with a big slash
salute
to everybody out there, and we will catch you again next week, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See you next zombie. Good night. Also, God.